Welcome to our webinar series for professionals.
So welcome everyone for this webinar on sport with Ian Craig. Ian, he has a master's in nutrition, and he has the Center for Integrative Sports Nutrition. And I think we met first time maybe like 15 years ago or something in Cape Town. And Ian was very much into DNA and sport performance. And then I on the side was like following you because you did this sports and nutrition magazine. I actually wrote a few articles with you at some point when I was very eager to do some of that. And it's a very good magazine in regards to nutrition and sport. And then you have a school where you educate practitioners in helping sports and athletes. And if I was a professional athlete, I know who I would go to get nutritional advice and nutritional optimization in regards to my sports performance, and that's for sure Ian. So it was we was like discussing a little bit like how should we focus on the sports section and DNA core, and like it was completely natural to ask Ian to join us and do some of like share some of his brain around sports and nutrition and performance with our team. So Ian, welcome to this event, and thank you for wanting to join us. So I will just, we will record it and share, of course, with all of you later. And we will share the slides as well in an email as well. And you can ask questions in the chat. I have noticed we have Callie and Virginia. You can see their faces as well. That's our clinical support team. And I noticed also Tamarin is somewhere. And so if you have questions, I have a very nice team to help me, because sports for sure is not my expertise. So that's my yoga, that's my sport. But you can ask in the chat, and they can answer, or we can ask Ian at the end section with the Q&A as usual. So I will mute myself now, Ian, and then I will let you take the mic and share your screen and your presentation with all the eager people out there who just wants to pick your brain.
Thanks, Anne-Catherine. That was a lovely introduction. And yeah, it probably is close to 15 years ago that we met in a bar in Cape Town. And at that time, I was doing some consultancy work for D-Analysis, and I did so all the way until I emigrated back to Scotland about 4 years ago. So D-Analysis, for anyone who doesn't know, is the South African genetics lab that has paired with Nordic. And our feature case study today, Callie, who's online, she's based in Cape Town. So it's really nice to make that South African connection again. So today I was tasked by Nordic to bring together a case-based discussion that brings in genetics and functional testing. So I thought, well, I could dig out an old case study, but then we actually have a good case that we can actually do in live speed, if you like, because I've only briefly spoken to Callie, so I know bits and pieces about her, and I've created some slides, but I thought it'd be useful for you to kind of hear how I think about a case. If she was to come to me as a client, what I would be thinking about and what I'd be maybe suggesting. Because as good practitioners, we don't just kind of lay out a direct program for our client. We need to be thinking about an approach and how to actually interact with them in order to make some good changes for the short term. In sport and exercise, often somebody has a short-term goal, but also many people who get into sport and exercise is because of health. So they have a long-term goal to actually improve themselves in some way. So I'm going to kind of go in various directions today, but hopefully it will pull together. I just want to ask you, can you see my slides changing?
Yes.
Yes, okay, good. So the first thing I'm going to say to you is I want to make it a wee bit interactive. I like interactive webinars. I'll get you used to the chat box. So please can you write down for us, where are you in the world? What's your profession? And what do you want to learn from today's webinar? And Anne-Catherine, if you can just sort of keep an eye on that, and anything you want to sort of direct back to me, that'd be great. I put in key learnings. These are drafted up with the description of this webinar. So I'll certainly be trying to cover most of this stuff, particularly trying to understand the metabolic pressures on an athlete who's doing regular training, utilizing functional testing, genetic testing to understand the functional imbalances that we might need to consider. The word cortisol is a big one for me. It always has been in this realm of sports and nutrition. And then personalizing and bringing balance. So we'll try and sort of cover all those different aspects. So I'll just, Anne-Catherine's given a good background to me. I'll just add in a couple of different elements. As an individual, I am curious. And it's actually a word. I have words for different years, and this year is a curious year. What would happen if I try this? What would happen if I try that? And I'm doing it personally through nutrition, through my own exercise. I'm doing it professionally. Well, I haven't tried that approach before. What would happen? Do we get more people coming on our courses or whatever through that approach? So my background is in athletics. Here was me at age 11, which is the same age as my older son at the moment, who's just taken up running. So I was curious at age 11, you know, what do I need to do to beat this guy from Glasgow who was my arch rival? That curiosity carried through to, this is me in my 20s, a couple of years younger than our case study, Callies. As you can see from the stand in the background, I didn't quite make my Olympic goal, but I spent 20 years trying. So I learned a lot on the way. And then the 20 years since then, I've been learning a lot more in terms of applied professional practice, working with individuals. So I've got a couple of hats. Since the early 90s, I've been working with clients through strength and conditioning, personal training, endurance coaching, and then into nutrition. So I'm a nutritional therapist and an exercise physiologist. Through an educational hat, my parents were both school teachers and told me not to go into teaching, but I eventually went into kind of higher education teaching, working with practitioners. So I run the Center for Integrative Sport and Exercise Nutrition. And my goal over the last 20 years has been to link these two areas. So with a background in very much sport and high level sport, but working with people across all sorts of sectors, I've brought the word exercise in a lot more nowadays because there's a lot of people exercising. And then in nutritional therapy, I learned a lot about functional nutrition. How do we think about the body system approach? How do we focus on the person's health? Because I believe health is an underpinning requirement for performance. And whether that's performance just to complete something or to be the best in the world at it, they're both relevant questions. So I just want to share with you how things have changed. So 20 years ago, the most common sport you would see is couch surfing, sitting on the couch with a beer in one hand and the remote in the other. But a curious thing has happened. These lay individuals who used to be kind of sitting on the couch are now doing CrossFit They're now doing marathons, 5Ks, 10Ks, marathons. I was interested by this trend kind of petering off on this graph. And it might be because ultra marathons are so popular now. It used to be just the domain of the South Africans with the famous marathons we're going to talk about shortly. But all over the world, you've got like long trail events. So some of the marathon runners will be now doing trail events. And then coming back down in distance, the park run. Worldwide, this was in July last year. Worldwide, there were just under 2,000 park runs plus 450 junior park runs, 300,000 park runners plus 24,000 junior park runners, and 41,000 volunteers. So it's a massive thing. So this mass participation in exercise is a thing now. So talking to you as practitioners, even if you don't think you're an exercise or a sporting practitioner, it's getting quite hard to avoid having to be. And what I mean by that, you might have somebody coming in to see you for health reasons, but they're doing park runs on a Saturday, or they've just signed up for a half marathon and they're working towards that, or they're doing CrossFit, or they're doing HIIT classes, or they're doing the regular spinning classes at the gym. You have to be able to support them with that, because the advice that you give nutritionally one day when they're actually just sitting at a desk versus another day when they're out preparing for a half marathon could actually be quite different. Now, most of you will be dealing with recreational athletes like these two. You can see straight away this lady and this gentleman are doing this for fun and participation. They're not ripped and, really sporty, aggressive types. They're doing it for fun. They're doing it for fitness. And that's the key. That's the exercise component. But some of you might be lucky enough to deal with some elite athletes. I deal with some, but the majority I deal with is also recreational as well. So we need to be prepared and equipped to have a little bit of information. And Bill Bowerman was one of the founders of Nike. If you have a body, you are an athlete. It's quite a famous quote. So it's about how you use that body in order to be fit, healthy, and your vital self. I'm going to just start with a bit of a question. What is sport and exercise nutrition? So have a wee thought in your own mind what your preconceived notion is about this topic. Is it big black pots and pills and how to build bigger muscles? Is it a food pyramid? That's kind of the wrong way down, with all the carbs at the bottom and a little bit of olive oil at the top. Is it nutrient timing, which is focused very much on elite sport and how to optimize your inputs in the session and your recovery? Is it genetics? Is it the food we source for the endeavors of being an athlete? Or is it the way that we prepare the food in order to energize our body? And the answer is all of this. The way we come in as practitioners might vary. So I've interacted with many very clinical practitioners who will love genetic and information that can support a program. I've interacted with foodies and chefs who will focus more on the food aspects. And of course, we're generally taught on the food pyramids if you come through the nutrition profession. But you can't forget the pills and the pots, because certain pills will be supportive to certain aspects of health that will underpin the person's performance. And if they're that way inclined that they want an ergogenic aid to improve their performance, you need to be able to be fluent in protein and creatine and, you know, maybe fish oils and different aspects that have been shown to provide a performance edge. So this is my performance pyramid, and most sports nutrition kind of looks like this. Performance nutrition: how many calories do we need? How many macros, carbs, fats, proteins do we need for the person? How do we time it? Pre, during, and post exercise, bringing in nutrient timing. And, oh, sorry, I'm pressing the up arrow rather than the down arrow. Forgive me, I'll be back there in a second. Okay. Right, and then top of the pyramid is supplements. You know, how much creatine do I need to grow these guns? How much glucose powder do I need to run faster? But my thinking goes more down here. So from nutritional therapy, I've been learning about gut health, endocrine health, immune health, musculoskeletal health. How do I support all of that, which then underpins performance? But then I met my wife 13 years ago. I had to think for a moment. And she's a natural chef. She's always been a foodie. So then I've layered in this level seasonal, organic, nature-made food, and also how to prepare it. She can prepare food in a certain way that energizes it in a particular way that an athlete might benefit from. So these are kind of my underpinning philosophies before we go into more detail. Some of you will have seen this. It's a very old spider's web diagram from IFM. I haven't seen it for a while, but I've certainly pinched it and I've used it many, many times. So this is how my mind works, not in a linear fashion of how many grams of this versus a certain output of exercise. And then we can take that previous slide, which is all about physiological interrelating health aspects, and put it bang in the middle of this slide. This is more of a sporting slide. And then add on all the different components that you might need to consider as a sport and exercise practitioner. So if you're a nutritionist or a dietitian, you'll be more coming in from this angle. If you're a psychologist, you'll come in more from this angle. If you're fluent with nutrigenomics, you'll come in more from this angle. But ultimately, we need to cover all of it. And all of it can be considered under this phrase life load, which tends to have a negative kind of connotation, but ecosystem is basically everything the athlete lives within. So their whole psychology, their physiology, their physical output, where they live, their toxicity levels, their environment, their peers, how well they sleep, how well they recover. So I spend still, many, many years later, I still spend an hour extracting information from a client when they first come in to see me. Okay, so that was a bit of an intro to me and how I think. We're now going to introduce Callie, the Comrades runner. And I'm going to start with a couple of photos. So I asked her, please, can you send a couple of photos of you running? So I picked the most obvious one, which is her, I presume, finishing the Comrades here. But I had to bring in another one because it made me feel a wee bit like what I call home from home sick. That's her in the beautiful Cape Town mountains. So I've got Table Mountain behind me, and I'm presuming this is the pipe track, is it, Callie? Yeah. So, and that's Camps Bay. Is that right? It's okay. She can't speak.
There we go. I can speak now. I just needed you to unmute me. Yeah, so it's a trail route called Missing Link. So it starts up in Bowerman and then running along the course, similar to Pipe Track, but it's magic. You have Table Mountain on the one side of you, and then the ocean on the other side, and that was last week Sunday. So very, very recent, and it's fresh in my memory, and it's hot, and it's it's a beautiful time of year at the moment. So it's a nice running time.
Thanks, Callie. So I thought it's a beautiful photograph. Right, a little bit about Callie from what she shared. I haven't done a full consultation with her, so otherwise I would have more information to layer in. But as I said, I want to focus more on how I'd go about this kind of case. And also what I didn't warn you of is I'm going to ask for your input. If you think you're just sitting back eating your lunch, well, you're going to have to give me your thoughts as well. Okay, so Callie, she's a 29-year-old dietitian working for Analysis within South Africa, living in Cape Town. She's a recreational ultramarathon runner. So the word recreational has a big range. It might be somebody just starting to do a 5K part run and they do it in 1 hour. It could be somebody who literally is on the verge of being able to give up their job to go and, professionally exercise. So she did her first comrades last June. That was the up run from Durban to Pietermaritzburg. It's a famous, famous ultramarathon, probably one of the originals. It's now common to have ultras, but it didn't used to be. She did this in under 9 hours, which is pretty good. Your elite are doing it in about 6 hours, but they're a different breed. This for somebody who has to work is really, really good. And then Cape Town in October, Cape Town Marathon. Bear in mind, these are not flat marathons. 3 hours, 23 minutes. So Callie's a good recreational marathon runner. Her general health is excellent. Energy consistently good. Gut digests pretty much anything. No main symptomology. She just said that her skin was a little bit reactive with the heavy comrades training, which might make you start to think about hormonal fluxes or shifts around these times. And no regular medications, including not being on the pill, which is relevant to the tests that are going to come up, but she does occasionally use paracetamol. So health concerns, none really. I think that was her words. And this is my questionnaire that I sent to her the other day. Just once in a while, I get a questionnaire back and there's hardly anything on it. So Callie was one of those. So we've got liver, small intestine, large intestine, nothing filled in. So she's got a robust physiology. She's 29 years old, so she's still got youth on her side. And she's in a profession and obviously a recreational pursuit that she would want to continue and be her healthy self. So before I go on, Callie, can you just come in and share? I've deliberately not shared your 2025 goals. So can you just tell everyone what you're wanting to do this year?
Hello, everyone. I didn't properly introduce myself earlier, but a lot of you would recognize a few names that's on the call today. But yeah, as Ian said, I'm part of the clinical team with DNA Life, Nordic, and my colleague, Virginia, who's the angel of my team, is also here. And when I met Ian, we chatted a little bit about plans for the year and my goals and everything. And in South Africa, Comrades is quite a prestigious run. I grew up with my mom did it when I was young, so I always looked up to her doing it. And basically my goal was to try do it, and I managed to do that last year. And then this year the goal is to do back-to-back. So my goal is to do that again, go through the whole process of training and everything again. It's in June this year, so kind of just on the start of my training. And the build up to that, as I said to Ian, there's a marathon in March that I need to do. There's Two Oceans Ultra, which is a marathon in Cape Town. It's 56. And then just a lot of time on the legs, a lot of running from now until June. But yeah, from a running point of view, that's kind of the platform up until the big one on the 8th of June. Yeah.
Cool. And what I haven't asked you before is beyond comrades this year and longer term, maybe going years ahead, what's your kind of bigger goals?
Yeah, so I think bigger goals and long-term goals probably not do this 10 times. People that do this 10 times get a green number, and I don't think I'm one of those people. I think towards the end of this, I think it's really just still being able to be healthy and run, and I don't know if I'll do too many more of these, but definitely just to be in a general good health state and maybe spend more time on the trails and other runs and that type of thing. Become more of a recreational runner, maybe.
Cool. Thanks, Callie. Okay, so here's Callie's training that she just shared with me. So I'm assuming it's January training. And if you look at it, it's a nice mixture. It's not heavy. I've seen many training programs. It's not your heavy run, 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 run. She's got some strength training. She's got some yoga. And she's also got a couple of trail runs mixed in, right? And I'll come back to that later. This is an important thing based on her genetics. She works 8 till 5 most days as well. Okay, so her training is very early in the morning, as many South Africans do, especially at this time of year when it's hot. A sample day of eating. So I won't read all the way through it, but she's a dietitian, so I would expect that it's halfway decent as it is. And my question to myself whenever somebody comes in with a decent diet is like, oh, right, what can I do to change? You don't always need to change something as a practitioner, by the way. Sometimes you just need to pat your client on the back and say, yeah, good job, and relax a bit. But there's a couple of things that I will come back to. And also I'm going to ask you guys to just give some input, as I said. Right, I'm going to deviate away from Callie, and then I'll come back to her. So I'm just going to do a little section on stresses and strains of being an athlete. And I believe that everything follows an inverted U pattern. If you're a lazy Joe sitting on your backside doing nothing, hey, you're not going to live out your best life. That's fairly obvious. It's in public health. What is not in public health is that if you're an elite athlete or somebody who really pushes the boundaries for many years, that U shape starts coming down again. So you put a lot of strain on your body physiologically, and we need to be aware of that. So depending on the person's goals, if they're an elite athlete and they want to win something big this year, you support them with that goal as best as you can, building in something called periodization so that they're not killing themselves all the time. They're pulling back and then building up, pulling back. But within their life, they need periodization, i.e. periods where they pull back in order to avoid the slippery slope. Because a lot of athletes will hit age 30 and then just, it's like they're going down a fun slide at a kiddie's play park. They just fall off because they're not keeping themselves healthy. But now there are enough role models out there of healthy top athletes that we can learn something. So a good example is Ronaldo, the footballer. I mean, has he hit 40 yet? He's around about age 40, but he's still competing for his country in the World Cup. I mean, that is remarkable. It truly is remarkable. But the only way of doing it is living a very healthy life. If you lived as an old-fashioned footballer having 10 pints of beer after the game on a Saturday, you're going to probably die when you're age 30. So let's just go through a few bits and pieces. It's obviously a webinar. We only have limited time, so I just wanted to share a few thoughts with you. So detoxification, you won't find it generally in the sports and nutrition literature, but it's very key. So an athlete's body needs to do everything a normal person does, but more. So life stresses may be high, particularly in age group athletes. So higher stress levels endocrine system needs to be cleared. We're exposed to exponentially more environmental toxicity than even a decade ago. So if you're running in the trails in the Cape Town mountains, you're probably okay. If you're running through Johannesburg or London, you're not okay. Dietary patterns have slipped to the extent that micronutrient intakes significantly lower than only 2 decades ago. Soil depletion, increased use of drugs and stimulants amongst athletes, and that's recreational as well. Obviously, you've got the elite athletes trying to gain an edge. How many people do the comrades on ibuprofen or a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory is ridiculous. So that's detox. Here's immunity. Immunity, there's this very famous J-shaped curve from 1994 from a guy called Neiman in America, and basically studied sedentary, moderate, and high exercisers, showing that exercisers, if you're really pushing the boundaries, have a higher risk of upper respiratory infections. This guy Malm a few years later came in and said, well, actually, no, it's more like an S shape because it dips down for the high-end guys. And nobody could answer why this was so. But my thought is, well, for the high exercisers, they're still going to do a job. They still have to work. The elite, if they get paid to do their sport, hey, guess what? They get to rest during the day. That's a fundamental difference between the two groups. Then we've got the antioxidant balance. Again, it's another U-shaped curve. So you've got physiological function. As we increase our exercise, we hit this point where we have improved our antioxidant balance. So our innate antioxidant activities like glutathione, superoxide dismutase, and catalase, they get bolstered by exercise training. But when you're training hard, you gobble up a lot of antioxidants. You use a lot of that reserve. So there's a point when you're moderately active where things weigh up really nicely. But then when you topple over the edge, your oxidative stress can outbalance the raised antioxidant systems. Okay, so it's a nice inverted U. And this is my words within this realm of antioxidants. Too little antioxidant availability and vascular, cellular, and mitochondrial damage will ensue, resulting in risk of health imbalance, a curtailed athletic career, and speeded up aging. Whereas too much can lessen the supercompensation response that should naturally occur after exercise. So we don't want to be loading up on supplements, because researchers have shown that you take too many antioxidants when you're training, you don't get that nice rebound of increased capacity. So oxidative stress and inflammation is a signaling mechanism for the body to adapt and get stronger. And then I'll just talk a wee bit about blood sugar. So this is a curve I've just pulled together from just years of thinking about it, really. So you get the green curve and the red curve. The green curve is like going to Cape Town on a calm day and doing a beginner's surf class. The red curve is going to Cape Town during a storm and trying to surf the waves. Some people can surf those waves, but they get exhausted over time. So if you don't regulate your blood sugars well enough, there's consequences like up here, we're pretty much leading towards type 2 diabetes. Down here, we're loading up the stress responses. Okay, so we can really mess up the HPA axis and the cortisol responses. So we need to balance blood sugars, but as you'll see here, it's easier said than done with an athlete who is striving hard. So we're now in the era of continuous glucose monitoring, which is another really cool tool, just like heart rate variability monitors have become popular. The bottom graph here is a healthy control. So you can see most of the days kept within this 4 to 6 millimolar range for glucose, except for after meals, where they get a bit of a spike, but then it comes down in a predictable way. Here's an elite cyclist. Now, I don't know anything about the elite cyclists apart from what was in the research paper, which wasn't much detail. So much of the day is way above 6. So as a health practitioner, you're like, whoa, okay, this isn't cool. This isn't good for health. Maybe this is the normal, but maybe we could come in and give this guy some tools and strategies around nutrition and recovery, and maybe not hitting the training so hard so often. And we could calm this down a bit. That would be a nice idea. So blood sugar reaches every single physiological system if it's out of balance. So these are things I would think about. There's many, many more, but you have to come and do one of my courses to hear them all. We need to be thinking about toxicity, oxidative stress, blood sugar balance, all the basic stuff we should with a regular person. Okay, Callie, back to you. So I'm just going to share a few lab results. I'm not a genetic specialist. I used to consult a bit, but things have moved on, so I don't know the full scope of things. I can generally get a good sense of physiologically what it's saying. But what I'm going to do, I've got quite a lot of information here. I'm just going to pick out some examples that were quite prominent for Callie, and just share them with you and how I might think about it. So you can see this test, DNA core, covers a lot, but I pulled out a few different areas. So there's our inflammation and our collagen production panels, and both have 3 points on them. Inflammation is important for recovery between exercise sessions, so we need to be quite cognizant here. Collagen, a lot of this is from, ironically, research at the University of Cape Town, and I've found it to bear out pretty well over time working with clients. So it's a couple of collagen genes here. So we need to be aware of this with Callie, that say she was going to do comrades year after year, there could be problems eventually. But we can, if we bring in variety, then that's important. Okay, I'm not going to go through this because I'm just checking my time. These will be in my slides. It's a sort of a slide on the inflammation, a bit of information about the interleukin-6 and how it can cause problems in an athletic context. Interleukin-6 is actually an inflammatory cytokine that can indicate pro-inflammation or recovery. So the context of how you read literature around this is really important. But I'll just leave that as an educational slide if you want to come back and have a look. This is one about injury risk. So the collagen slide, if you just zoomed in on the genetics, it would be like, oh, Callie, give up running. But you can see how many different risk factors there are around injury risk. Okay, onto her slide, onto her results again. So methylation, most of the panel was really good apart from this one 3-pointer and a 2-pointer. So that's enough. These are important genes to know that we need to be supportive with B vitamins, especially what does the Krebs cycle get fueled with? B vitamins. So there's a competition for her when she's training a lot. Phase 2 detox. So there's one 3-pointer on our glutathione S transferase SNP. So that's important to cover as well. Antioxidants didn't look too bad, but I'm just going to throw in a bit of information about eNOS. So again, I won't go through this in detail, but it's related to nitric oxide synthase, and beetroot juice in sport has been studied really, really well. So there's a little dietary tip I can add in now for Callie. Maybe some beetroot juice periodically as part of a recovery strategy. Because I've just said, don't supplement high dose antioxidants when you're doing a recovery strategy for an athlete, unless they really need it for other reasons. But hey, beetroot juice or some pomegranate juice or some cherry extract, I think that's a good food-based way to go. This is DNA hormones. So let's see if there's further information we can get here. And how hormones work is that they need to be synthesized, they need to be utilized for whatever job they're doing, and then they need to be broken down. So this is, the D-analysis team's done a really good job with these reports because they're visually, you know, it's the first time I've seen them of the recent type, and they've done a good job. So phase 2 detox. This is in the hormone report. We have seen this GST SNP before. We haven't seen the NQO1. We haven't seen this glucuronidation. So we need to be considering glutathione and glucuronidation, which are both part of the phase 2 detox. Methylation doesn't show up much here, but this is the benefit of doing more than one test. On the other test, the methylation panel was bigger, and we know that needs support. And then, obviously concerned about her DNA hormones, she did the Dutch test. And overall, it looks pretty good. I mean, the androgenic side looks fairly balanced. And if you, I can't spend lots of time on this, but if the Dutch test is new to you, I recommend you come in and do a training at some point, or at least get these slides and read through it. The progesterone looks okay, on touch on the high dial, but it's in range, and the same with the estrogens. But the one thing that came out was the 16-hydroxy metabolite of the estrogens. And I just dug out this this visual from, this is the Dutch test online resource. So it has a description of the 2, 4, and 16. So it's kind of like the good, bad, and the ugly of estrogen metabolism. 4 is the kind of one you have to worry about, but that looks fine for Callie. But 16 can be proliferative. So based on, she's only 29, but when she's 49, do we need to be worried that the 16 sitting too high? All right, but she's already taken actions on that. And then, having worked for years with cortisol, and I still actually run the adrenal stress index test, which basically is a cortisol equivalent to one of these. And I find it very, very useful. Okay, so what stuck out to me was quite a lot on this page, Callie. So we get melatonin, which at first glance looks mid-range, but it's 22, which is only about, what, 2/10 of the way on the range. So the sleep hormone needs to be boosted up a bit. The metabolized cortisol is low, suggesting that Callie has overdone the cortisol usage in recent times, which wouldn't be a surprise because she spent last year focusing on comrades. And then she did the waking response to cortisol. So cortisone and cortisol are very much mirrored here. So waking slightly on the low side. Within 30 minutes, it looks good, but within an hour, it looks rocket high to the point that the lab said, I need to move the video here, 1,600% increase on that 1 hour sample compared to the waking sample. So Callie, can you tell us, was that a running day you did this test on? Do you remember? Or was it a non-running day?
It was a non-running day. I knew not to, so I didn't. But yeah, it was a
Were you
normal day.
particularly stressed that day? Was there a hurry for anything?
Not particularly. Maybe a little bit of stress leading up to the test, but on the day itself, not a particularly stressful day.
Yeah. Okay.
I
Thank
think
you.
it was a Tuesday I did it.
Yeah. So, oh, going the wrong way. Right. So just so you get a clear view, that's something I would want to work with Callie on, because that might be a learned response that every single day I need to get up and straight out onto running and get the adrenaline and the cortisol levels up, which might not be it's fine for a period, but over time it can cause this adrenal reserve to lower. What Callie's already done, she eats before and after exercise, which is great. She consumes a daily methylated B complex, takes a sulforaphane supplement, which is for that phase 2 detoxification, and the glutathione, consumes an omega-3 supplement, so there's inflammation, and she added creatine into her regime, which is not just for the lifters in the gym anymore. It's got a really good research support for a lot wider than that. What else should we consider? So this is where I ask you for your help. So if you can type into the box from what I've presented so far, what we've shared with you, what would you as a practitioner be thinking if Callie was your client? And Anne-Catherine, if you can do the honors of just reading a few out. And just because I know we're sort of pushing on in time, while you're doing that, I'm going to start layering in stuff I would think about.
So glucose balance.
Glucose balance, great. So what I'll do is I'll go through my thinking and then just add in a few more, and Catherine, as they've come in. So I'd think about the timing and the type of training. So Callie, I think, as I've said before, you're well balanced there, but could there be certain days where you don't have to crank yourself out of bed for a 5 o'clock start, so that you let your natural circadian rhythms be settled in the morning, and therefore you're less reliant on cortisol? So it could be like lunchtime or an afternoon workout or something like that. So that would be, you don't need to answer right now, but these would be question marks that I'd be discussing with you.
A lot of people are saying like adrenal support and bring down stress levels, stress reduction, adaptogens, meditation.
Okay.
And
So the blood sugar, cortisol, and these support. So definitely strategies, and I'm coming into a stress slide as well, and probably some adaptogenic support or something similar in your supplements. Okay, this is the same slide as I brought up earlier, and I'm just adding in a few things. So overall notes, these are the kind of things I'd be thinking about, right? We need to hit all these aspects within the diet. So let's move the videos on to the other side. So thinking about color, you bring antioxidants, color you start to support your anti-inflammatory aspects as well, nitrates, organic and local. So Cape Town's got a brilliant food scene. So you can definitely get good ingredients. So first thing, try and get rid of any chemicals that might be in your food consumption. And apologies if there are anyone sponsored by Future Life, because I'm going to do this. Because Future Life, what is it? I can't remember the ingredients again, but they once approached me to work with them. It's like soya, which I bet will be genetically modified, but it's certainly not your Asian fermented type, and sugar. There's another ingredient I'm forgetting. So I think you can do better than Future Life for your health. And that's part of the cleaning up and thinking about detoxification. What else would I think about? So you get the Ruskin coffee pre-training. I would be varying that. I'd maybe change to a banana some days and playing. So basically experiment with things, maybe a fruit instead of the rusk. Experiment with not having a coffee. If that's a problem, it means your adrenals are taking strain, and then you need to work on timings a wee bit and other strategies to support the adrenals. And also some of these will be long runs. So therefore you need more than a rusk. And obviously you need to prepare for comrades and two oceans and so on. So it needs to be more of a breakfast ahead of the bigger ones. Oats I've taken out this Future Life. So the oats breakfast is good as long as it's good quality oats. So like your steel cut or your jumbo organic rolled oats. But once or twice a week, you could change it to an egg or a fish breakfast or something like that. I've just thrown in a few different snack options. Flax crackers. Flax is good with isoflavones, and if you sprout it, it's even better. Hummus, you can get in some garlic, chickpeas, olive oil. It's a good anti-inflammatory kind of element. You could change the olive oil to hemp oil to get more of a omega-3 input. You could create a smoothie, and there you can get some antioxidant red powders in there. And instead of the Future Life bar, there was a lady in Johannesburg who made Bare Nature bars who are really, really good quality. That was who I referred to when I worked in South Africa. Lunch, maybe have some fish. So I'm just thinking about the omega-3s. Use brown rice sometimes, so not to overdo the wheat, even though your gut's good, but variety is always good. Seasonal organic vegetables, which can be in salad or cooked forms. Get some sprouts in, for especially alfalfa and things like that. Broccoli sprouts are brilliant for the glucosinolates. And oils, as I said, I like hemp oil. It's a good omega-3 source. Dinner, homemade stocks. So you could consider casseroles, stews, curries, soups in the winter, that sort of thing. Homemade stock, getting the collagen and gelatin support for the musculoskeletal system. And then, of course, cruciferous and allium veg for the detox components. And then in the evening, based on the melatonin not being as high as I would like to see, I would maybe see if you can stomach a chamomile tea or a pucka sleepy time tea or something like that. So that's my kind of thoughts. And then this is just a general slide. I think this I put in, I wrote a general nutrition book called Wholesome Nutrition a few years ago. And I think this was the table we put in that. So it's just general anti-inflammatory, handout information for a client. And then this is what all of you online kind of beat me to. But how can we flatten out this curve? It's really important. That is okay short term, and age 29, it's fine. Age 29, I was fine. Age 31, I think it was, I completely burnt myself out. So I've had this up and down cortisol dynamic, since that point. If you can calm down this curve and find balance points, you'll have greater longevity in whatever you want to do. So I just use the words experiment with. It's similar to be curious. What will happen if I do X? A wind down process in the evening. So again, I haven't gone into detail with Callies' life, but I would extract all this from a consultation. Easing slowly into the morning. What can you do to just slow this curve down? Can you bin the coffee and have a tea instead? Play around with the food. Pre and during exercise, snacks and drinks to support blood sugar. That's a whole, for me, a whole consultation is to talk about just the race and the training nutrition. Okay, so we don't have time for that today, but it's really important. Protein consumption at breakfast. because when you're focused more on oats and peanut butter, and yes, milk's pretty good, there's a bit of protein in there, but when the training's up at a higher peak, as I know will be coming, I'd maybe be slipping in a protein drink as well. And that's supportive to blood sugar balance and cortisol. Stress management strategies. So yes, you work 8 to 5, but the things that could come into the day that can just keep bringing the cortisol levels down. And it could just be 10 deep breaths once an hour or something. Doing things with ease, identifying things that are done in a stressful way and just, how can you do it differently? And overall, I use the analogy yin-yang a lot. So you get yang exercise, the hard exercise, yin exercise, which is most yoga, Pilates, Tai Chi, Qigong. She does a bit of yoga, but then how can she bring yin into every single day by bringing a bit of ease into activities? Okay, right. That's me. I'm going to shut up now. This is my information. We've got every social media known to man now. I run a podcast. I just started it last year, so we're just on our 12th one at the moment. We're going to restart doing webinars as well very soon. And we have, these are the 2 big courses, the Certificate of Integrative Sport and Exercise Nutrition. And we've just started a postgraduate level diploma, which is a much bigger project. And I'm looking to link that up to get to a master's degree as well. So with your permission, Anne-Catherine, I'd like to offer a 10% discount to anyone on this call if you'd like to come and join us for our courses, or one of our courses. And then at the end, you've got the references that I used for today.
Wow. Thank you, Ian. There was something mentioned in the notes that I didn't bring up, and it's a concern for me as well, with the the paracetamol that Callie seemed to be popping. Of course, I don't know how much, but in Denmark, there's been a lot of focus on the paracetamol, how much a couple of paracetamols is more or less impacting the body and the liver as much as a night out in town. And obviously, I guess Callie is taking it because it's painful having to run. But could there be something else that could support, or at least support, the liver and glutathione production and a recovery for that, but something else that could reduce some of the pain?
Well, firstly, Callie, how often do you take paracetamol?
I just have to mute her. Good.
Not during running. It's normally for like post, if there's exertion headaches, which I can get now and again, not frequent, and not during running, unless it's very critical, which it's not often at all.
Cool. So it's not a main thing. A lot of people will literally pop them all the way through a ultra marathon.
Run, yeah.
But yeah, that would be something I would bring up and say, okay, how can we actually get rid of these headaches? A little tip I have for people doing hard exercise is juice raw ginger into ice cube blocks. And then what Callie could do is pop one out and put it with some beetroot juice and maybe some pomegranate juice, and you just let it melt. It's super strong, but it's a very strong anti-inflammatory. So if it is, again, that's an experiment thing. If we assume inflammation from the exercise has triggered our head, that would be worth experimenting with. If it's not that, we need to kind of look at other things. It's a good question.
I'm just gonna pop in some nucleotides, Callie. Maybe you should try that. See how you're recovering.
I did actually. after the Nordic webinar conference last year with Peter Koopel and nucleotides, I had a long chat with him, and he actually recommended nucleotides at the time, and then was using it quite consistently. And yeah, I'm not so good anymore, but the build up last year I was actually using it, and I think it did help. Yeah.
Then I also just wanted to bring attention to this new creatine product that we have. It's in liposomal form, so it comes like that you can just squish, and it actually gives like the whole daily dosage. Now I've had to take my glasses off and see how much 4 grams one of these gives. So that could be something that's easy to use as well.
Yes.
And one person also asked what your vitamin D levels are, because there's a lot in regards to athletes and how they just like use up a lot of vitamin D, and how in athletes, how it's perhaps important to have a higher level of vitamin D than in like.
So yeah, and mine's about 50 nanograms per milliliter at the moment. I know everyone's got different reference ranges, but 50 is pretty high. I've also had 3 weeks of December in Cape Town, so they're quite saturated at the moment.
Super. So
Any other questions?
one is bringing up SPMs instead of just omega-3 and adding pro-resolving mediators.
Yeah, just SPMs just go a bit deeper into the inflammatory pathway. And I think it depends on the person, like many topics. Some people will convert quite fine from a fish oil, or even from a flax or a hemp seed oil, but some people need a wee bit of assistance. So if the fish oil is not kind of working for inflammation, then you could consider SPMs.
And then we have Kane Leatham saying that 50 is low for athletes, he says. So there might be something you need to look a little bit more into. He's even saying I'm aiming for 150 to 200. But that's nanomole per liters, not.
Yeah, it's different scale they use in South Africa.
Okay, I really like how you've all taken part and given your notes. I hope you have taken that in and support from others. And thank you, Callie, for sharing your case.
Of course.
Yes, thank you,
You know,
Callie.
you did better that way.
Of course.
And Ian, thank you for your time. And just when we send out the education, we'll just share the link with your education if people want to log into that and have a bit more of a look into your education for sure. So thank you everybody for hanging in there with us, and see you next time at the next webinar. Take
Thanks
care.
for hosting.
If you do not already have an account with us, please contact our team and we will assist you. If you found this webinar helpful, please like and subscribe to our channel.